What's going on, Guardians? It's Tizzle here. So in this video, I wanted to talk about dungeon boss health and just kind of where we're sitting at. So this week, I've been working on solo flawlessing all the dungeons, this time with Prismatic. And I figured it would be much easier to do now because of how strong we are with Prismatic, having access to Radiant and Weaken and all those things all in one subclass obviously makes us very strong. So, anyways, as I was going through the dungeons, I felt like I wasn't deleting the bosses as quickly as I would have expected. And they did raise the power level in Final Shape. So that throws off all the damage numbers. So we can't do one-to-one damage comparisons. I tried and they don't add up. So anyways, I just want to read this from the TWID on June 20th. It says, "We have a few raid and dungeon details to share. Basically, they say Final Shape brought a few changes to the raid and dungeon experience. First, the difficulty tiers and power level caps were reworked, altering the difficulty for many power-enabled activities. At the same time, surges were added to raids, offering a damage boost to certain damage types on a weekly rotation. We've seen a lot of discussion and different numbers provided for how this impacts the raid and dungeon experience, so we wanted to first give a quick clarification on the net change for incoming and outgoing damage in raids and dungeons in the Final Shape." So then they have this chart, and basically it says we're now power capped at -5, but incoming, the power cap is +15. So basically we're taking less damage, but we're dealing a little bit less. But then here it gives net percentages. So basically they're saying our outgoing in raids is -33%, and then dungeons is +2. But then when you factor in the surge, we're now doing 15% less damage in raids, but 28% more in dungeons. And this is just not accurate because, like I said, I've solo flawless these dungeons a lot, and I kind of have a good feel for basically just how hard weapons will hit, how many phases things take, and whatever. So this at +28, you'd be rolling through stuff. And the biggest indicator that it's not is Pit of Heresy, which I'll get to. But there could be another factor, and I do have evidence that they increased boss health, so maybe that's what's going on here. And then incoming, +17%. So again, I'm not exactly sure. Basically, we're taking a little more damage here, but we're receiving less damage in dungeons. And they clarify, they say, "These numbers specifically for regular combatants, blah, blah, blah. More difficult combatants may scale a bit differently. Raids and dungeons had different settings previously. However, being very similar to each other, they were changed to use the same settings in the Final Shape to be more consistent. While the outgoing damage is capped at -5 in the power-enabled match-made difficulty, standard and advanced, players will continue to increase defensive effectiveness beyond the target power. So the target power display focuses on offensive output for UI UX reasons. This means that players will continue to reduce incoming damage up to +15 in standard and +10 in advanced." In our chart above, you can see the players only take slightly more damage in raids at +15. So this is incoming, while they take less damage in dungeons than before the Final Shape. Again, they say different combatants may scale a bit differently. I feel like the final boss of Warlord's Ruin is hitting harder now than it did before these changes. And again, it's not a regular combatant, so it could just be that boss. But also the Pit of Heresy final boss, I felt like his fire was melting me a lot quicker than it used to. So again, this is just a feel thing, but I've done these enough to know that it does feel a little different. And then basically, while they take less damage in dungeons than before the Final Shape, but I found I was just as squishy, if not more, in certain encounters. With that context in mind, we've been listening to the feedback around surges, and we're going to make a change. So we have decided to remove surges from raids and dungeons in next week's update, as well as to adjust tuning so that you'll perform as if you had them across the board. This means the damage bonus will now be applied to all subclass types, including kinetic by default. This change will make outgoing damage in dungeons higher and reduce the difference in raids compared to before. So it does so while removing barriers to build crafting will continue to monitor. So basically, I'm not sure how accurate this chart is, because I'm not sure if this is taking into account the changes that they're making to the surges, or if this is how it was before the changes. But basically it says our outgoing is much higher, and here I'm going to show some before and after pictures of not necessarily it being higher. So let me find them. So here's a clip from last season on Pit of Heresy, and I get the one phase. I'm on Dawn Chorus Warlock. So keep in mind, last season we had what's it called? Solo Operative. So we're doing 15% more damage, plus we had Revitalizing Blast. So basically we're getting Weaken here, and we're getting Radiant. And look, that fire isn't melting me that fast. Granted, I did sever the boss before damage started, but just look at how quickly I take this boss out. He doesn't even start putting down his thing. And this was before the GL nerf. Before the GL buff, I should say. So look, we kill him with one super, and how many shots of my grenade launcher? 19 shots of GL. So now, here it is this season. So I proc Devour so that I'm able to weaken with my Buried Bloodline, and I pop Transcendence, so I'm doing 5% more weapon bonus. So if this was a buff by 28%, or whatever they're saying in this, to outgoing damage, I should actually kill in like less shots than 19%, because keep in mind we have Expanding Abyss, and I'm using all void sources for damage. So I'm actually, it's like a 25% weaken instead of 15% like last season. So that basically counteracts, not quite, but almost counteracts Solo Operative. And again, keep in mind, I killed him on Warlock before he was even taking a knee. So now we proc Radiant, we have Weaken, and then we do some bait and switch shots, and like pretty respectable damage. So now I cast my super, and then I'm going to kill these Cursed Thrall, and yeah, just look at how fast that solar damage from the boss was melting me. And I had triple surges in both instances as well. We've got triple Void Surge, so we apply Weaken again, we pick up that for Radiant Orbs, and now we're going in with Bait and Switch again. So we did a super powerful one-off super with Twilight Arsenal, and then we get off, again, roughly 19 GL shots, Weaken. So right there, we almost kill, but that was with, what, 26? So 25 grenade launcher shots, basically. And I pretty much every time I was shooting it, I had Armor Charge, Radiant, Weaken with Expanding Abyss, all that. And we wipe, and then here we can see the damage screen. So I did over 3 million damage. Now let me show you what the damage was last season. There's my one phase last season, 1.9 million. This season, almost 3.3 million damage on Zulmak. So this was when I actually got the clear. I had to two phase. I tried and tried. I could not get a one phase. And then I checked Esoteric because I didn't actually show the end screen. So Dlan CaRu last season was 6.9. This season, 22 million. But Dlan CaRu scales when you pick up those finite thoughts. But luckily, I used very similar damage rotation last year as I did this year. So basically, we pick up our finite thought, we have Armor Charge, we go in with, again, remember we did have Solo Operative last season, so that's adding a bit of damage. But I just want to show for comparison's sake. So basically it's like 2 Dragon's Breath shots, and we absolutely melt. So nothing too crazy, right? Like Dlan CaRu has been a joke for a while now. This time, unfortunately, I don't have triple Solar Surge because I didn't make orbs there on those guys. But we pop Transcendence, we have the Weaken going, we have our Dragon's Breath going, we're also unraveling, so we got a lot of stuff going on here, a lot of damage over time and things. We're hitting sniper shots, which they tend to do more than a fusion rifle, at least in the past. So anyways, it's still a pretty quick melt, but again, I'm just showing for comparison, but you really notice it on Pit of Heresy. So now I just want to show the boss damage totals. So these are different now this season by quite a bit, but again, Dlan CaRu has some weird scaling. Here is Pit of Heresy, And then I also very much noticed it on Prophecy, the Kel Echo, but even the first boss, the Phalanx boss, you can pretty easily get one phases on that boss. And this season, I was like really struggling to get a one phase. So again, I don't mind that they increased the health here. That's not what I'm concerned about. It's that they said we're doing 28% more damage, and you can just see from the Pit of Heresy comparisons that that just does not seem to be true. But yeah, I don't mind that they increased it. It's just weird that they didn't mention that they were increasing the boss health pools, because, and you might think, oh, they did that with all the final shape ones to account for the changes. No, because as we go, some of the health pools are actually lower. But again, I really felt it in Pit of Heresy, and I really felt it in Prophecy. Like Prophecy, I had a pretty good damage rotation and still wasn't able to get the one phase, where last season I could get a one phase. But yeah, look at the difference in damage. It's about 4 million. So no wonder I couldn't get a one phase. Again, not complaining, I'm just making the community aware. Grasp of Avarice, it's about 1.3 million more this season. Duality, about 1.1-ish more. Duality, honestly, it felt easier, but maybe that was just a loadout I was using. Like, I damn near two-phased, where back in the day, you had to be like really on point to get a two-phase. So Duality, Keitel, I actually thought felt easier this time around. But again, it could have been the strat I was using. They weren't really comparable. Like, I had very comparable ones for Pit and Shattered Throne. That's why I showed them. Spire of the Watcher actually goes down this season by like 300,000 damage. So that's interesting. Not sure why. These are often hard to tell because the bosses have overshields. You have to take in, so the more phases you do, the more health it's going to show, because you have to take the boss's shield down every time. But these were both 4 phases. And in the 4 phase this season, there was a little less health. So that's interesting. And then finally, Warlord's Ruin, a lot less health this season. And again, Warlords, maybe because I got better, because I hadn't really solo flawlessed it since day 1, like when it came out. So I obviously refined my strats and had better damage strategies and stuff this time around. So it definitely felt a little easier. But like I said, the boss felt like it was hitting super hard. So anyways, it does show that it has less health this season, which is very interesting. But yeah, anyways, I just kind of wanted to show those because I thought that was interesting. And if there's any like damage scaling experts out there, and like people that know about power deltas, the people like the Mossy Maxes of the Destiny community, if you could share down in the comments what's going on here, or if you have any more insight, that would be great. But yeah, like I said, some dungeons, especially Pit and Prophecy, the bosses felt way tankier. And then, like I said, in Duality, Keitel felt almost easier, even though on paper she has like 1.1 million more health. So not really sure what's going on, but I thought I would just make a little video talking about it. So if you're still here, thanks for watching to the end. And yeah, once a week, I will have my solo flawless clears with commentary going on the channel. So if you don't have those emblems, check those out, because I have some really good strats for prismatic loadouts on how to beat these dungeons very easily with today's sandbox. So anyways, thanks for watching and take care.